Thank you, sir. So over to you, sir, Dr. Gbadegesi.
I hope he's online.
I'm going to check now.
Please, he's there. So he's going to do that.
All right, sir.
Thank you. I already informed the organizers long before now. But I quickly want to show up to see that I'm part of what's going on. I have a very good family, and my daughter is wedding today.
Wow, congratulations, Prof.
Thank you.
Well, right. We have been there.
Thank you very much.
Happy married life to the couple.
Thank you. All right.
So Dr. Gbadegesi, please, over to you, sir. Dr. Segun Gbadegesi, not quite sure is connected. I'm not seeing his name on the participants list yet. Okay. Well, in that case, I think what we can just do is to switch, if with your permission, if you don't mind, because it doesn't appear that Dr. Gbadegesi is connected. Maybe he's trying to connect, but I can already say that Dr. Ebitare Obikudo is present and she's here, live and direct. So if she wouldn't mind, that we quickly switch instead of having to wait for Dr. Gbadegesi's connection to get through. Would that be fine?
Let me get in touch with him.
Okay.
Let me get in touch with him.
Okay, sir. In that case, I think while we wait for that, what we can do again is to take the goodwill message. I think that will help us by the time. We take the goodwill message that was meant to be presented by the Vice President of Association for Translation Studies in Nigeria, Professor Kobus Mares, who is unavoidably absent, but has sent us a pre-recorded message that we will take now. I think we can take that now. Prof. Ngozi, do I have your permission to do that, ma'am? Okay, good. So that while we are waiting. So
go ahead.
Thank you very much, ma'am. So please listen to the goodwill message by the Vice President of ATSN, Professor Kobus. Thank you.
Good morning to all the colleagues in Nigeria, especially members of the Association for Translation Studies in Nigeria. On behalf of ATSA, I would like to congratulate you on your first anniversary. And I thought to translate my verbal congratulations into an emoji to say, well done, excellent work. We want to congratulate you not only for setting up the association, but also for keeping it going and now celebrating your first anniversary. Colleagues, so I thought of taking just a few minutes to think with you about the task ahead of us in Africa. Because as you know, translation studies is still a growing field in Africa, and so it might be at this first year anniversary, it might be worth your while to think about, so where do we need to go? So there are many places I think where we need to go, but one I think quite important one is that we need education for translators in addition to training. So training is important to teach young translators the particular skills that they need to do their work, but we need to educate them broader than merely giving them technical skill. We need to expose them to things like critical thinking, like reflexivity, like awareness. The question you probably have is why? Why do we need to do this? And I think the main point is that our continent seems to be caught up in authoritarian social structures or practices that perpetuate current practices. So we tend to overemphasize authority in our continent, and we tend therefore to do things the way that our parents or our forebears did it, or the way that the bosses did it. And that means that we just keep on doing the same things over and over again without necessarily asking whether these things are still the best ways of doing things. So what we need is students who are able to evaluate these practices, which have become entrenched and important, but they need to evaluate them in order to guide us towards better practices in future. I'm not claiming that traditions are absolutely bad. They never are. But I'm also not claiming that they are absolutely good. So that brings us to the point where we have to say we need to teach our students how to evaluate their traditions. We need students who have the knowledge and the wisdom to weigh the practices and the traditions that they have and to determine the direction for the future. We congratulate you on your first anniversary. We extend our hands to you for the task ahead, and particularly this educational task to grow the next generation of translators. And we wish you well. We hope that you will have lots of energy because it's a long road ahead and you will need to keep on chipping away at this task. With that, thank you very much and best wishes for many, many happy returns of and productive returns of this day. Keep well.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was the goodwill message from the ATSN Vice President from South Africa. He's unavoidably absent, but he has shared his goodwill message. And I think the issues he raised are very important issues that we should actually reflect on, the issue of education of translators. I think we can come to that when it is time for Q&A. Thank you very much for listening to that. Now, I hope we have Dr. Gbadegesin around now. Let me check if he's there. Otherwise, Prof. Ilo, if Dr. Gbadegesin is still not there.
Yeah, Dr. Adedimeji wanted to see if he could present.
Okay.
Yes, please.
Okay.
Read the message I sent to you.
All right.
Just to quickly add, Dr. Falabi, I sent you Dr. Adedimeji's presentation so that you could help share if possible.
Okay. Is it by
email?
The email. Okay. Let me
forward it to your email.
Okay. I'm checking that now.
I also left you 2 messages on WhatsApp still on this program.
Okay.
So check later.
So access the WhatsApp now, but I think I got the email. So I'll be taking Dr. Adedimeji now. Just 1 second while I open this presentation, please. Okay. I think I have this presentation now. Just 1 second, please. Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm trying to open the message that was sent. I got this presentation now. Copying it to display so I can share. All right. So now that we move to Dr. Adedimeji, I'll quickly do his introduction. Dr. Mahfouz Adedimeji is an associate professor of applied linguistics at the Department of English, University of Ilorin, Nigeria. We have obtained all his degrees in English language. He has attended several conferences and presented papers in various universities in Nigeria, as well as Ghana, Sierra Leone, Kenya, and Australia, Malaysia, and the United States. He has published scores of academic papers in respectable outlets in Nigeria and beyond, with his latest publication on fostering educational and peaceful coexistence in Nigeria, appearing in Language, Education, and Religion for National Development, published in 2020, a book that he co-edited with 3 other colleagues. He also published Right Writing and Wrong Writing in 2020. Prof is a Fulbright scholar and public affairs analyst. He was Deputy Director of Information Corporate Affairs and former Director at the Center for Peace and Strategic Studies, both at the University of Ilorin, where he has served as a member of the task force on book projects like 50 Years of University Education in Nigeria and University of Ilorin at 40. A member of the Nigeria Inter-Religious Council, NIREC, and Rapporteur General for the Presidential Institute Committee on Education in Nigeria, 2017 to 2018. He has won the conference grant of the Association of Commonwealth Universities and co-won the research grants of the Tertiary Education Trust Fund, TED Fund, as well as the Council for the Development of Social Science Research in Africa, CODESRIA. Dr. Adedimeji is a consultant to the United Nations Development Program, UNDP, Nigeria, a former member of the Governing Council of the International Peace Research Association, member of the Executive Committee of the English Scholars Association of Nigeria, among other scholarly bodies. So, Dr. Adedimeji, you are welcome. Please, you have the floor. Thank you. Over to you, sir. Dr. Adedimeji, can you hear us? It doesn't appear as if he's connected. I cannot see his name on the list of the panelists. Dr. Yali, can you please reach in?
I'm doing so immediately.
Thank you very much, sir. We understand that people might have some technical issues with connection, internet issues, in Africa in general. So please bear with Dr. Adedimeji as we wait for him. Thank you.
Hello?
Yes, sir. Yes, Dr. Yali. Dr. Yali, please unmute.
No, I was trying to talk with Dr. Adedimeji. That's why I muted myself.
All right, thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. The title of Dr. Adedimeji's presentation actually is
Hello, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yes, I've been able to reach Dr. Badigesin.
Okay.
And he said they're trying to log in. I think, can you try and bring him in?
No, there is no waiting room. Actually, it could just log in automatically. We didn't activate waiting room function. So it should.
Okay.
Except, I think where you may have issue is if you didn't register ahead, then
I guess as much. So what are you going to do? So why you didn't register ahead?
That would be a challenge because he didn't register. We put Professor Kolawole, on the panel. And if he didn't register, it's going to be a challenge, as a matter of fact.
Okay. Let's see. I'll check the stuff.
All right. Thank you very much, sir. So we have
Dr. Falabi.
Yes, sir.
Dr. Dedimeji is saying that he cannot mute or unmute himself or something. Could you help as the host to unmute him?
I have unmuted everyone, all the panelists. Just a second.
Okay. Can you see his own interface and whether he's muted or not?
Okay. The issue is not even on the panelist list. So
he said it's on. Maybe if it's not on the panelist list, check the other general list.
Yeah. Okay.
He's been on.
Dr. Adedimeji.
What you can simply do is to unmute him.
Yeah, it's just to unmute him so that he can talk. The screen is already here.
Exactly, but it's not. His name is not on the list at all.
Sir, which name did you use on your laptop or on your device? Is it same Dr. Mahfouz Adedimeji? Yeah,
Mahfouz Adedimeji.
I can't see Mahfouz Adedimeji.
There is no Mahfouz Adedimeji.
On the panelists and then attendees, I can't see Mahfouz.
It's not there. So let him verify. It's not the panelist list. It's not on the
Ask him what device he's using.
Okay, then let me. Yeah. Okay, then let me drop the call. Let me drop the call and then you check. All right.
Yeah. But instead of why is sorting it out, I think we can just have the next speaker who is already available.
No, let's send a email.
Dr. Adedimeji is not there at all.
I'm listening.
Okay, when he receives a call, I think he's using data from his phone to log on. So if you receive a call, it may log you out first. So now that I've dropped the call, let's see whether he'll be back on.
It would have been better on the PC, not on the not on the phone actually.
He's back. He's back on. He's back on.
Okay.
I can see him on the attendees list. Mahfouz Adedimeji.
What's the name, sir?
Mahfouz Adedimeji. After Latif Onire Ibrahim.
Okay. Now you have the floor, sir.
Okay.
He has submitted himself. Please ask him to unmute. I have unmuted him here, but he keeps muting himself.
If I call him back now, if I call him back, it will log him out again.
Oh.
So I think he can hear the conversation. So
yes, I have given him permission to talk now, but it's muted. Okay, one of those technical issues. Please bear with us, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, somebody's hand is up.
Okay.
Somebody's hand is up among the attendees. I guess he's the one. There are two of them.
Okay. Just 1 second. It's not still talking yet. We cannot still hear him. Dr. Oladimeji or Dr. Adedimeji, please. Dr. Adedimeji.
Hello.
Yes, Dr. Adedimeji, Dr. Adeyefa.
Yes, Dr. Dr. Badigerson said that he registered. So, and he registered for the webinar, but I don't know why it's difficult for him to join.
Oh, that's
He's ready to present. He said he registered. He has been trying to link, but
then it should be a challenge with his network connection then, because his name is actually not on the list of attendees and the list. So it should be a challenge with his network connection in that case.
Okay.
It should join from his email.
Yeah,
it should join from his email. It will be easier for him.
The acknowledgement.
He has a code there.
Yes, I'm going to talk to him, sir.
Yeah. Dr. Adedimeji is trying to connect, saying it's technical.
Okay.
I'm linked up from my email. Dr. Adedimeji, can you hear us now? He's saying it's a technical problem at his end.
Yes.
Dr. Falami, please. Can't even hear.
Yes, sir. Dr. Adedimeji. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. It's possible you registered as an attendee, not as a panelist.
No, yeah. But if his name is here, we can allow him.
Maybe to send him the link sent to panelists for him to retry. While we wait, we take another paper.
You mean for Dr. Badigerson?
Yes. Or have you gotten across to him?
But I think the main issue is actually his connection, because his name is not on the list of the attendees. Okay. Here we have about 48 attendees, and his name is not there at all to be given the floor.
Are you sending the list for panelists? The link for panelists?
There is actually no specific link. It's the same invitation to all.
He's around now.
Ah, okay.
He's on now.
Okay.
He's on now.
Okay. Okay.
Is it Dr. Badigerson that is on now? We cannot see him. Dr. Adedimeji is saying he's been part of the program right from the beginning. Well, I think while he's sorting that out, Prof. Ngozi, why don't we take Dr. Obikudo, who is there? I can see her. She's eager to share with us. She's eager to, to make
I've sent you Dr. Obikudo's presentation. If you could download, please. I just sent it to your email.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, so we're going to take Dr. Obikudo. Just 1 second, please.
While we are waiting for this to be to start with Dr. Obikudo, just a quick announcement. The question and answer, there's a Q&A room, so to speak. So if we have any questions that we want to present, maybe it should be posted there and not in the general chat room, so that it will be easier to harvest. Just to bring attention to that.
Thank you, Doctor. So now we have Dr. Obikudo's presentation. Dr. Ebitare F. Obikudo graduated with a first-class honors in linguistics and African languages from the University of Port Harcourt, Nigeria. She holds a PhD in linguistics from the same university where she currently teaches as a senior lecturer. Her research interests include writing descriptive, grammars, orthography development, and language and cultural documentation of lesser described African languages, digital means of collecting, annotating, and preserving linguistic data, as well as investigating meaning and translation in linguistic documentation. Dr. Obikudo has participated in conferences, workshops, and summer schools, both locally and internationally, and served as reviewer and consultant for 2 Bible translation projects one on Nigeria Pidgin English and another on Ibani and Ijoy dialect. She presently serves as a reviewer for the Journal of the Linguistic Association of Nigeria, JOLAN, and Journal of West African Languages, and coordinates the National Language Policy Project in Rivers State. Dr. Ebitare has a number of publications in reputable academic journals and is a member of several professional bodies, including the Linguistic Association of Nigeria, West African Linguistic Society, Association of Phoneticians and Phonologists in Nigeria, African Council for Communication Education, and the Association for Contemporary African Linguistics. So Dr. Obikudo, please, you have the floor. Thank you. Dr. Obikudo, you are still muted, please. Dr. Obikudo, we are not hearing you actually. And you are muted. Yeah.
You are not muted at the moment.
Yes.
Could you check your earphone? Maybe you unplug it and put it back. We can hear you now. Say hello.
Right.
Yeah, we hear you now.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
You can hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, so let me remove the earphones.
Okay, please.
So good afternoon, everybody. I want to thank the president and executive members of ATSN for inviting me and finding me credible enough to talk. I also want to thank the LO, the moderation and all the preparations towards this anniversary. So I will be sharing my screen. Dr. Folabi, if you don't mind, can I share my screen myself?
Yes, please go ahead, man.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
I'll stop this. Okay, so you can share your screen now, man.
Okay, thanks. Okay, thank you.
Thank you too.
All right, so, okay. So the topic I'll be speaking on in digitizing indigenous languages, building a digital lexicon. And I'm going to begin by defining some terms. We'll look at the contents and then we'll define what digitization is and how it applies to indigenous languages. So this is my list of contents. We're going to have an introduction, and then we'll talk about why we should digitize indigenous languages. Is it really necessary? Because we have so many of them. Why should we digitize them? And then we will define what digitization means. And then we would look at the kind of digital data that we can create for indigenous languages. And after that, we'll go on to look at how we can build a digital lexicon, what kind of applications we can use to do that, and what steps we will need to take in order to get to that goal. Now, we all know that the African continent is a multilingual one. There are so many languages spoken in Africa. I think in this continent alone, 1/3 of the languages spoken in the whole world are present here. And Nigeria has over 450 indigenous languages. I think up till now, we have not really been able to ascertain the exact number of languages and dialects that we have in Nigeria, but we have, officially there are over 450. Now, the 450 indigenous languages spoken in Nigeria and all over Africa, many of these languages are minority languages, and minority means that they are not written, they are barely documented. Some of them are there
I think there is an issue with internet connection again. So sorry. Okay, she's back. Now, please unmute yourself, Dr. Bikudo, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So still sharing my screen. Okay, so we're saying that many of the indigenous languages are spoken. I'm still having issues with my internet, but I think I can go on. Many of the indigenous languages, the minority ones, are spoken, but they are not written. So this means that we would have a number of languages that have not yet been digitized. However, the indigenous languages do not have to be only languages of, do not have to be only lition. They can also be developed into languages of communication in the print, in the broadcast, and digital platforms. And with the incoming of COVID-19, a lot of us, in fact, the whole world has realized that digital technology is a necessity. When everybody stayed at home and you could not go out, you could not communicate with people, you could not buy from the market, the digital platforms became the platform for selling, became the platform for buying, became the platform for communicating with our loved ones. So the impact of digital technology on our world presently cannot be overemphasized. And so we need to digitize our indigenous languages so that it will aid literacy development and preservation. Now the question is, since the indigenous languages are so many, is there really a reason, is there really a need to digitize them? Yes, there is. Is it possible to digitize all our local languages? Yes, it is. As far as we have people like you and I, indigenous speakers, translators, linguists, language enthusiasts that are enthusiastic about their language and want them digitized, it is possible. Why should we do this? Now, our indigenous languages define who we are. Right now, we are communicating with English. English is not my mother tongue, and I'm very sure it is not yours either. However, we speak English, or in some other parts of Africa, French, because they were colonized by the French. But I do not see myself as an English woman, and I'm sure you do not. Rather, what we do is we refer to ourselves by our indigenous languages. I would say I'm Hausa, I'm Igbo, I'm Yoruba, I'm Ijaw, I'm Urobo, I'm Igala, I'm Efik, and all that. Even when we are fluent in our indigenous languages, we still do not say I am an English person. We will still identify ourselves by our languages. So indigenous languages define who we are. And you know, that is one of the problems we even have in Nigeria. So many indigenous languages dividing us instead of uniting us. So we are defined by the languages that we speak. Your language is who you are. The second reason why we should digitize indigenous languages is that all traditional and cultural knowledge which are enshrined in our cultures are difficult to explain most times in the language of the colonial masters. So for instance, I was teaching a class at the University of Port Harcourt, and I asked the students there, I said, how would you, have you ever been to the village, lived in the village? Yes, I have, that was the answer. Have you ever carried luggage on your head? And they said, yes, they have. And I said, at home, how do you carry things on your head? Do you just take the thing and you put on your head like this? And then maybe you're going to the stream to fetch water. They said, no. I said, what do you usually do? They said they put a piece of cloth. I said, yes. So how do you put that piece of cloth? So first of all, you take that cloth and then you wrap it round in a circular motion, all right? And then you put it on your head. And I asked them, what do you call that in English? And they all looked at me, and it was so difficult for us to find an English word for it. But by the time I asked them to tell me what it was in their individual languages, they all had a name for it. So you see, these things, this kind of knowledge about the plants, the herbs in our localities are usually transferred orally from one generation to the other. There is no document that, you know, tells us about this. There are no videos, there are no pictures. And there is no other way we can translate the things or explain these things except in our indigenous languages. Now, another reason why we should digitize indigenous languages is because our languages shape the way we see the world. It shapes the way we understand the world and relate to the world and even to the people around us. Our languages are also very rich in ecological knowledge. So wherever you come from, whatever community you come from, your speech community, there are certain aspects of the ecosystem that are unique to that speech community. So for instance, I am Ijoy and I come from the riverine area. And if you come to where I come from, you will find so many names of fishes. There are some fishes that I don't even know their names in English, all right? But I know what they look like and I know their names in the native language. So you find that there's a relationship between a language and the environment in which it is spoken. The flora, the fauna, the ecosystem, all these are represented in the indigenous languages. And if we don't digitize these things, if we don't document them, we lose them because we can only find them within the speech community where that language is spoken. Now, most of the indigenous languages are minority languages, which means that they are not documented, they are not written, they are not used in many language domains. So you don't find them spoken on the radio, you don't find them newspapers, written in newspapers, you don't find text in them and all that. And this makes them threatened by loss of use, because if we're not using them in different language domains, then it means that we are using another language. And that language is threatening the indigenous language. So most indigenous languages are minority. And being minority or being small group means we need to digitize indigenous languages. Now, having said all this, I hope you are with me or you agree with me that there is a need to digitize our languages. Some people say that there is English, there is French, there's Yoruba, there is Hausa, at least one or two languages enough for a community. No, as many languages that can coexist in a speech community are contained in the language. It is not just the language, the speech form. The ecology is there. The tradition is there. The culture is there. And all these things have speech representations, which must be preserved. Now, the question we now ask ourselves is, what is digitization? And we are not computer scientists here. In a number of, I don't think there's any computational linguist here either. So we are just doing a simple definition of what digitization is. Letters on paper, except these days we now have the email, which is electronic form. So digitization is converting records from paper to electronic form. Digitization is also the process of converting information into a form in which the computer can read from an analog format into a digital one. Computer can process or transmit, or any device that has a computing ability, like your mobile phones, digital hearing aids, and so forth and so on. Now, when we digitize languages, we can use them for web-based and mobile technology, which means that we can use our languages on the internet, we can use them on our mobile devices. And when a language is digitized, it can easily be shared and accessed on various digital platforms. And as we continue to see advancements in technology emerge, a digitized language, the data in it can be migrated to new formats as the formats come. And this way the language can be preserved theoretically, for a very long time. Because the real reason why languages are preserved is when the speakers continue to speak them. When speakers stop speaking their languages, even if they are digitized and placed somewhere in the clouds or on a digital platform, they would eventually die. Okay. So as a linguist or a translator, or just a language enthusiast or a native speaker, probably on this platform listening to this talk, and you're asking yourself, what kind of digital data can I create for my language? Now we can create text, we can create pictures, we can create audio files, and we can also create video files. And I'm going to be looking at these different formats for creating this kind of files. Now, text files are files that are written in a linear form, the way we type from a piece of paper into, for instance, for Microsoft Word. And to digitize text, it means that the language has to have a written form. There has to be a writing system for the language. The sounds which are represented in the language have to have graphic symbols that represent them. And this is where the linguists need to start from. And that is why, as a person, I'm interested in orthography development. Because if we do not develop writing systems for our languages, we cannot digitize them. Now, for imputing text, we have some formats which are there already. But if there is an analog format already, probably something that has been handwritten, for instance, or carved on something, and you cannot write it, digitize it. The way to digitize it actually is you could scan it, and then you could save it as a PDF file, upload it on whatever platform that you want it uploaded. The other kind of data we can create are pictures. Graphic representations of the language. For instance, sign language, which is not spoken, but is gestured or signed, can be captured with pictures. Plants, animals, and other cultural artifacts can also be captured using pictures. And the formats are there. The most popular formats and acceptable formats are the .jpg and the JPEG. These are the two formats that are usually, I think across all digital platforms, you can use this. The next kind of file are audio files, and audio files are recordings of speech forms. So for instance, this particular webinar is being recorded, and I guess there's a video and an audio recording of it. So you could listen to it later. So formats in which sound files can be recorded are .wav, AIFF, OGG, and whatever in storage. And if you're going to be uploading this on a digital platform, we advise that you use .wav files, because these files are not decompressed like MP3 files. And so the last format are video files. Now, formats in which video files can be recorded you have MP4, AVI, VOB, MOV for OS platforms, Mac OS platforms, but they on all digital platforms. Okay, now having looked.
Please, Dr. Obikudo,
yes?
the slides are not moving. Please, could you just move the slides as you?
Oh, really?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Let me check. Let me just check and see if I'm using. Is it moving now?
We still have it introduction, ma'am.
Okay, that means I am my screen sharing. I'm seeing it has been paused. Okay, sorry, I didn't take note of that.
Okay, no problem.
Oh dear, I'm so sorry.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, so can you see that now?
We still have the introduction slide, ma'am.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, okay. Yeah. It's
now.
moving. Now it's moving. Yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Thanks a lot.
So I think I did stop sharing at this. Okay, I'm sharing now. Okay.
But you're not using slideshow.
I don't know why just now this refused. Okay, let me do some. Let me close this and start again, please. I don't know why it's refusing to do slideshow. The one I was looking at seemed to be doing slideshow, but it's like I was using another one. So I'm here.
It actually did slideshow at the beginning, the first time you started.
Yeah. Then okay, yes, now it is. All the tabs now went blank and were not highlighted anymore. All right. So I think it's okay now.
Yes, ma'am. It's fine.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. Sorry for that. So all right. So let's go back a bit. So you could, then we're looking at why we digitize indigenous languages. They define traditional and cultural ecological knowledge, and they are extinct if we do not do anything about them. And then we define what digitization is, which you can see there. And we say if we digitize our languages, then we can use them on the internet, we can use them on our mobile devices. And that way they can be preserved for a long time. Even when they are no more spoken, there will be records of them. And we then, lastly, just where I stopped, now we're looking at the kind of data we create for indigenous languages, say text, pictures, audio, and video, and the different formats which we use. I think I ended with video. All right. Now, one of the things we need to take note of is that when we create digital data for indigenous languages, we must adopt best practices for digitizing our languages. Now, I will not go into detail on this anyway, but I have listed some websites where you can find guidelines that have been released by different institutions, mostly universities, who are into digitization of languages. And there you will find best digitization practices for audio, for video, for images, and so forth and so on. The kind of format that should be used. Some would also suggest the kind of software or applications that you can use, and also at the frequency, for instance, anyone that is interested in doing this can look up these websites, download some of the materials, and then read them as a guide. But what is important is that you need to know what you want to digitize, and you need to know what format you want to put them in. Now, according to Bell and Natal, there are 3 key components we need to consider whenever we want to digitize. And remember, it is not only languages that are being digitized. Many other things are being digitized. Artworks are being digitized. So it's not just language, but here we're interested in indigenous languages. So these components apply to anything that is going to be digitized. The first component, or the first criterion we're going to consider, is selection. So if you want to create digital data for an indigenous language, you need to ask yourself, What kind of data do I want to digitize? Are these data already available? Is it audio? Is it video? Are they text? Are they pictures? Or do I want to go out to the field and collect them, create them newly? You need to decide on that. And then when you have done that, you need to understand, ask yourself again, what are the best formats suited for the selected data? So for instance, I want to digitize audio. So I want to record some audio samples of the language. The best format for that is .wav. The best frequency for that is 44.1 kilohertz, nothing less than that. It could be 48.1, but nothing less. So I need to know the best format for recording my data. And I need to know the best practices for digitizing the kind of material that I want to digitize. And then the last component is access. How am I going to organize and manage my data? When I've collected my data, where am I going to publish it? Where can it be accessed? Who can access the data? Do I want native speakers, which of course should be? Do I want native speakers to access it? Do I want fellow professionals to access this data? So these are the things that you need to ask yourself. Selection, what do I want to digitize? Standards, what format, what best practices do I have to employ? Access, how do I organize and manage this data that I've collected? And where do I keep them so that they can be accessed by the people that I want to access them? Now we've come to how we can build a digital lexicon. Now here, the choice is for the investigator actually. So you could decide to build a specialized vocabulary or a full-fledged dictionary. And a full-fledged dictionary takes a long time because you need to gather a lot of words from the language. A specialized vocabulary could just be something you could use for a primer. So for instance, I may decide to collect words that have to do with body parts so that it could be taught to children or learners of the language. I could decide to collect data that have to do with the language of farming, the language of hunting, the language of blacksmithing, the language of fishing, basket making, or whatever craft that is done in that speech community. So you have to decide what you really want. And then when you decide what you want, you go on to collect your data. Now, since we are talking of digitization, it means that we need some applications, software applications that will help us, because we are not collecting our data manually now and writing them with hand. We need things that will help us to digitize this thing. So the first thing we need are data applications rather for recording. We could have a digital audio recorder, or you could install a software on your phone or on your laptop, your PC, to do your recording. Now, if you're going to use a digital audio recorder, it means that you would transfer that particular, the audio recorder would save it and then you would not have to upload it to your computer. But if you just do that on your computer, then you already have the sound files on your computer. So you need to decide. Now, some people prefer digital audio recorders because that is what they are made for, and the output is normally very good. However, if you use a software that is also meant for recording and editing audio files, such as Audacity or WavePad sound editor, which can be used both on your PC and on your Android phone, then it's as good. The next thing you need to also consider if you're doing a digital audio recording is if you would need an external microphone. If you think that the microphone of the software or you think the input from the software or the output from the software or your audio recorder alone is not good enough, then you may need a microphone. You could also use something like this, which I was using, which is headsets. So, but this is just for one person, so that you could record directly what the person is saying. But remember that whatever audio recording you're taking, whether you're using a software installed on your computer or on your phone, or whether you're using a digital audio recorder, make sure that you set the frequency at 44.1 kilohertz, which is the same thing as 44,100 hertz. Then for recording also, if you are going to do video, you would also need a video camera for that. Although for what I want to just show you, we would be using just audio, picture, and text, all right? So you would also need a digital camera for taking pictures. You can actually use your phone camera if the definitions are good enough. Remember, you need to take a look at best practices and know what definition is good enough. Now for editing, you would need a software, an audio editor, which can edit your file. Now Audacity can do that. WavePad Sound Editor can also do that. It can record and it can edit. Audacity can record and it can also edit. For annotating, you would need a keyboard software. Now I want to talk about this because our indigenous languages are not written the way English is written on Fulfill Day, are tone marked. You need a keyboard that can put subdots under it and all that stuff. And you need a keyboard that are not found on the English keyboard or the poetic keyboard. And this is where Cayman Desktop or African Keyboard for Language Data Input is needed. Now, Cayman Desktop, like the name says, can only be used on your laptop or your desktop, but the African Keyboard can be used on your mobile phone and also on your computer. We also need a Fieldworks Language Explorer or a kind of software for building your lexicon. I like using Flex, but you can also use WeSay, you can use LexiPro. There are a whole lot of them out there. If you go to www.sil.org, you will find a lot of software for doing a lot of language work, including fonts, right? Fonts that will be needed for typing in your data. You will find that. So if you're using Cayman Desktop, I would encourage you to use Caris SIL or Doulos SIL. At the end of this presentation, I have a list of suggested software and the website where you can download this software. Now, if you're going to do video and you just want to do subtitling, then you will need YouTube Studio for subtitling. For YouTube Studio, it means that you have to open a page on YouTube and then you can subtitle from there. After you've annotated, you also need a software for publishing or making your work accessible to your required audience. Webonary is a very good application or platform, also developed by SIL for publishing your digital dictionaries. You can also publish your grammars there, okay? And YouTube is good for, not for let's say professional reasons, but if you really want to reach a large audience, YouTube is good. Okay, so you can reach people, whether they are educationists, whether they are lecturers, whether they are just indigenous people or just people that just are interested in African languages, they would access it there easily. And then there is also a dictionary app builder, which is a platform for building a dictionary app, which you could use on your mobile phone. So you can use it after you have done your work on Flex or any of the dictionary building, lexicon building apps. You now transfer it to dictionary app builder, and you have a dictionary app of your indigenous language on your phone, which you can use offline and online. You need it online to listen to the audio recordings, but offline, you can see the text there without going online. So now we want to build our digital lexicon, and there are steps that we would follow. The first step that we're going to take is to collect our data. Remember, we have done our selection and you have decided on what you want to collect. So whatever data you're collecting, whether you're doing a full-fledged dictionary or you want to do a specialized vocabulary, you need to record your language data using whatever device you have decided on, an audio recorder or a software application. Then you would also need graphic images of relevant data. Yes, there are some terms that cannot, you can't take pictures of, but if you are going to do body parts, for instance, probably you can take a picture of the eye, the nose, the mouth. If you're going to do fishing, you can take pictures of fishes and the instruments for fishing and all that. So there are some images that you can give visualization to. There are some data that you cannot visualize, right? The next step is data processing. After you've collected your data in the format in which you want to collect it, then you need to upload your files to your computer. If it's an audio file, you need to do that. If it's a graphic file, you need to do that. And then if it's an audio file, you will need to edit that file with a software. So usually when you are doing a recording, you would record a whole lot of things on one sound file, like we are doing now. You're not going to record my words. For instance, I say, my name is Ebitari. You're not going to record my separately, name separately, Ebitari separately. No, you're going to record everything together. So but you cannot upload everything together because you're looking at words and you need the audio to correspond to the word. So if I say head, I need the word for head to correspond to the written text for head. So it means that after I've done my whole long recording, I need to upload that to my computer. And with a software editor, an audio editor, I can begin to cut the words into single files, one after the other. Now, I want to say that the easiest step in building a digital lexicon is collecting your data, all right? Once you know what you want to collect, the easiest step is actually collecting your data. It does not take as much time to edit every word. And after you have edited every word, then you can now upload the single files to the word that is relevant. So after we have done our data collection, we have processed our data, all our files have all been cut, we know which one is which. We now go on to data annotation. And for annotation, we need to choose the software you want to build your lexicon on. Here I have chosen Flex, and I will show you a screenshot of what it looks like. But you can use Wise, which is very easy and not as complex as Flex. But the reason I chose Flex is because with Flex, you can, since most of us here may be professionals and your idea may be at the end of the day, you want to publish probably analog dictionary, something like that, so that people in the community can also read. So I would say probably Flex will be good for that because you have a whole lot of things that you can input into it. Now, after you have created, the first thing you do is to create your project after you've downloaded the software, and then you are going to impute your language data into Flex using Keyman Desktop. Or, sorry, that's supposed to be on, not off, or the African keyboard. And then any other relevant information, because once you have imputed your language data, you need to put a translation and you need to decide, what am I going to translate my indigenous language into? Am I going to, I need to translate it into a language of wider diffusion or wider communication. So am I going to use English for those of us in Nigeria, or probably that particular speech community is located within one of the 3 major languages. So for instance, you may want to translate into Hausa, or you may want to translate into Igbo, or you may want to translate into Yoruba. So that is for the investigator to decide. And of course, a phonetic transcription so that anyone that looks at your data may know how to pronounce it. But you would have an audio file so that those that are not learned in phonetic transcription can listen to the words and imitate them, pronounce them. Then you will also need to input your audio and graphic files to the appropriate words. And the last step you will need to take after you have done all this on Flex, you have created your digital lexicon, so to say, for the indigenous language of your choice. then you need to publish your data. And here I have suggested two platforms, Webonary and the Dictionary App Builder. Webonary, which will be on the internet, on the SILs and SIL website, and then the Dictionary App Builder, which is also an SIL application, but which will be on your mobile phone. So for Webonary, the first thing you will do is to go to the website and create an account, after which you can upload your data. And the good thing with digital data is that you can always modify your data at any time. You can update your page at any time. You can, even on your mobile phone, you can update, so you can add in new words when new words come into the language, or if you come upon words that you did not put in before, you can always update your work. That's a good thing with the digital data. The second way you can publish your work is to install Dictionary App Builder on your mobile phone, and then you follow the steps, and then you export your data from Flex or your digital lexicon building app, and then you follow the instructions and then build the app. That way also you can share your app with friends, you can share your app with relatives, you can share your app with the speech community. Now, another way of publishing your data, which I didn't put here, is YouTube. And with YouTube, you would always need a video. So it may need you, after you have created your data, creating individual video files for different words, which you can now show as a video on YouTube. So this is a screenshot of a lexical entry in Flex. All right, this is a specialized lexicon. It is a language spoken in Ghana and Nimere on a project we did some years ago, and it's an endangered language. So this lexicon contains only words that have to do with the human body. And here we have the I'm going to, yeah. Okay, so here we can see the text, and it is with the use of Keyman that we are able to do this. It's with the use of Keyman that we are able to do this. If you use your keyboard ordinarily, you won't be able to type some of these letters like the velar nasal. You may not be able to put the tones on them, but with Keyman desktop or with the African keyboard, you can do this beautifully. So this makes it possible. Then here we also have the audio file. This shows you that this is an audio file. I can't click here, but probably when I finish with this screen, if you would want to listen to it, I can actually share the actual application, and you can hear the words being pronounced. So this shows that you have uploaded an audio file. And here we can see .jpg, which shows that we have a picture file also. So if you click here, you will also see the picture of the word that is being presented here. This is a screenshot from Flex. This is another screenshot from another dictionary building app, that's a lexicon building app, and this is called LexiPro. Here again, we see the pictures. This is millet or sorghum, and then we have the word there, the meaning in English and the word in the native language. This is in Bambara. So with these platforms, we are able to show the text in the language. We are able to show the picture of the word that is being presented, and we can listen to a native speaker pronounce the word the way a native speaker would. And so this kind of data is helpful not only for native speakers, it is also helpful for new learners of the language. And for old learners, that's people that probably grew out of their speech community, they didn't grow within their speech community and want to learn the language. And so this is why digitization is good for every language. Now this is a screenshot from LexiPro. Okay. So after having looked at all this, we see now that doing digitization is not only for big languages. Any language, no matter how small, as far as it is spoken, it can be digitized. Now, these are a list of some of the software which we can use for digitization, and the websites are also there. And then we have recommended readings. I just put a few readings for us if you're interested in still knowing more about this. Yeah, so all right. So what I want to say is that you can start where you are with what you have. Anyone can do it. You do not need so much knowledge of the computer to do this. The instructions are very clear. And for platforms of accessing your data, Webonary and dictionary app builders are software that are already built. So all you do is put in your data and then it will just organize it for you. That's the beautiful thing. Even with Flex, it will arrange it in alphabetical order for you. So your main work is collecting your data in the different formats and uploading them and putting in the necessary information such as the translation and the meanings, and probably if you want to, you could also put sample sentences where those words are used. And once you have done that, you can publish your work and it's available to those that would want to work or listen to the language or learn the language. I hope that having listened to this, I would encourage you to I would encourage you now to go back and begin to collect words in your indigenous language and see where you can start from. You may start small with a specialized lexicon. And after you have done that, you may decide to go for a full-fledged dictionary, right? And you do not only have the digital form, you can also print out the analog form, which can be used as well as the digital form. So I want to thank you very much. This is where my presentation ends. I want to thank you very much for having me and look forward to hearing, listening to your questions. I know that this time is very short. I would have loved to really take us through maybe some practical steps, but it's not something that we can do here right now. But I would, if my email address, I think is available on the slide at the beginning. So you can always get in touch with me for any questions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very, very much, Dr. Ebitare Obikudo. Indeed, I would say that this goes for a real inaugural lecture, if you permit me to say so, because we all agree that this is a digital world. We cannot afford to be analog in a digital world. And you've really taken us through that in a very practical and down-to-earth manner. Thank you very much on behalf of all the participants. Actually, you have a long list of questions that participants have set in. So please be on standby for the Q&A section when we are going to be taking the questions. Thank you very much once again. Really appreciate that. Thank you for initiating us into your world of into your digital world. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, I have no doubt that we all enjoyed that presentation. We're going to have the opportunity to take the questions, so many questions relating to Dr. Obikudo's presentation. I think Dr. Adedeji is still having problem connecting. So if he has been able to connect, I would like him to just let us know. If not, we still don't have any signal yet from Dr. Badigesin, who is supposed to stand in for Professor Kolawole. Maybe while they are still trying to get connected, we understand what the issues might be with internet at this part of the world. If the LOC chair will permit me, I think we could just go straight away to questions being addressed to Madam Obikudo. Now that it's fresh, we can just take them. Madam Prof. Ilo, what do you think, ma'am? Okay, Prof. Ilo is not there. Dr. Ijoma? Please unmute yourself, please, so we can hear you.
I think it's in order. Instead of waiting for people who are not connected, we can go on with the questions and answers.
Exactly. Thank you so much, man. Thank you so much. So, Madam Obikudo, we just go straight to the questions. We have a list of them. I think I'll start from the very last. Okay, let me take this one first. The question says, I'm working on a translation related to Egun. Egun is a minority language spoken in Lagos and Ogun states, in Badagry. I'm quite aware of that. And this scholar is saying that he was advised to use Carisil to be able to type the language. He said he has tried many times, but it's not working. Please, ma, do you have any other applications that can help me out? That is according to the participant. Thank you, ma. Okay,
so Cornell, I think that's the name.
Yes, Cornell Agbotan. From French
what are you using with your font? What keyboard are you using with it? That's the question that I would like to ask you. And then because the keyboard you're using with it would also let us know how you are using it. The second thing I would ask you is if you've tried Caris SIL and it's not working, you can also try Doulos SIL. Both of them are very similar.
Okay. Thank you very much. I believe the participant has had, and I think if there is any need for clarification, you will always reach out to you. Another question says, interesting presentation. So thank you once again. Please, with the list of the softwares that you mentioned, the list of the software, will that list be sent to participants? That's the question, man.
Okay, so I have I think the LOC, Dr. Uchenna has my PPT with him, which is what I presented now. I think if it could be sent to the participants, since they should have all their emails, that would be quite helpful.
All right, so with your permission.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ma'am. The next question says, how do we go about the formation of orthography for languages without it? I hope the question is
okay, clear. So yes, is it the one by Christopher Chinedu? Can you please help the series of
Bello Ibrahim?
Okay, no, I have.
How do we go about
the formation? Okay, how do we go about the formation of orthography for languages without it?
Yes, ma'am.
The first thing you need to do is to collect a word list, and a very robust one too. So we used to have this University of Ibadan word list, which is made up of just 400 words. But now we have a lot of word lists that are much more larger than that. There is the SIL Comparative African Word List. If you just go to Google and write SIL CAWL or SIL Comparative African Word List, you would be able to download the PDF file. Now that word list contains about 1,700 words. So it is very robust. And the first thing you need to do is to collect the words in the language, record them, audio recording. I always tell people, don't collect languages without recording them, because sometimes you may think you heard something, and then because you didn't record it, you have to go back and look for that same speaker to collect the word again. So, but if you record it, even if you weren't transcribing or writing it down at that time, if you just let the speaker speak and then you have your recorder there, you can go back home and do your work, and you don't need to stress the speaker anymore because you have the data which you can use for various things. So the first thing you do is to collect the sounds through the words of the language, and then you do a phonological description. So you need to know what sounds are in the language, what sounds are not phonetic, but phonemic. That's the ones that can create differences in words. That way, when you start with that, then you can assign symbols to represent those sounds. What will also help you is if that language which you are talking about has related languages within the vicinity that have similar sounds, you could also find out how those sounds are represented. So that for harmony of languages within the same area, you could have the same graphic symbol representing the same sounds, because that's a confusion we have in English. So for instance, we have a voiceless labiovelar fricative, which we'll call F, as in fa in English. We use an F, letter F for it. What about graph? G-R-A-P-H, we use PH, another letter for it. Giraffe, G-I-R-A-F-F-E, double F for it. So there's so much confusion when it comes to English. So when you are forming you're developing the orthography for your language, you need to be accurate. K. Williamson, 1984, gives us 5 principles of a good orthography. One is accuracy, another is consistency, then we have convenience, familiarity, and harmonization. So once you're able to put this in practice, you should be able to develop a good orthography. Then if you're not a linguist, you may need to ask for the help of a linguist, because that will also help you to do a good job. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Thank you so much, Doctor. Then a question that also relates to this last one, it says, can you please with theories of orthography?
I don't know if there are theories of orthography, really. Maybe someone else will help me with that. But I do know that there are guidelines for developing an orthography. Okay, so like I just listed what Williamson 1984 published about writing a good orthography. I wouldn't call them theories, right? She calls them principles, and I will go with that. There are principles of writing a good orthography. I don't know if I should call them theories, which is what I just listed now. Accuracy is one of them. So an orthography must be accurate. One symbol must represent one sound. One symbol, one sound. Consistency. The same symbol must represent the same explained in English, where you have F, FF, GF, and so on. And then you have convenience. So you need to use a symbol that will be easy for speakers to write and type and print. Then familiarity. You need to use symbols that speakers are already familiar with. Then harmonization. You need to use symbols that are in harmony with related languages, so that that language does not look as if it is different from its sister languages. Thank you.
Thank you so very much, ma'am. We really appreciate those positions you have brought to this. Dr. Obikudo, thank you one more time. I'm sure you are still around, so if there are other questions from participants, they will not hesitate to send them in, and we bring them to your attention. We have some other questions that are actually for other interventions before now. Prof. Ilo, we still don't have Dr. Adedeji connected.
Dr. Adedimeji asked whether I could present for him. I've gone through the text. I'm not so familiar with it. My suggestion would be perhaps we'll send it to the participants and they could do it if possible. I was going through it to see whether I could present, but I'm not really familiar with the text. It might look so awkward. He complained that his problem is that he couldn't see the audio keys, the mute and unmute buttons to be able to make his presentation. If he could do that, then we could share the screen for him and then continue.
Why he speaks.
Yeah, but he couldn't. And so as a start,
have the keynote then.
If the keynote is ready, I think we should take it and maybe then share Dr. Adedimeji's text.
Yeah. What we can have, let's Dr. Falabi, put them on the screen for everyone to see. Just keep showing the slides, and then I don't know.
Dr. Oyali?
Yes.
You have yes, Dr. Adeyefa?
Yes, I'm trying to see if I can look through
Professor Kolawale's presentation.
Okay.
However, I couldn't access the PowerPoint, but if the slides could be released, then maybe I will quickly go through and present something on that.
Okay. Dr. Yali, does he have his presentation in PowerPoint?
Yes, I sent it to you.
For Dr. Kolawale?
No, I didn't. Yeah. Dr. Kolawale's is not on PowerPoint. That's the challenge.
Yeah, I saw it on the WhatsApp group. It's a Word document.
That's a very tough challenge. If it is on PowerPoint, we can go ahead and present that. Then if the other one is on PowerPoint, you can scroll through and present that. Then I will be seeing what I can do with the other one.
Hello, Dr. Falabi.
Yes, ma'am. Yes, Prof.
Dr. Falabi, please.
Yes, Prof.
Why don't we have the slides of Dr. Dedeji? Just run through the slides on the screen for us to see.
Okay, for Dr. Adedeji. Okay, let me check that now, man. Okay, just 1 second.
So I sent it to you earlier. I think you even put it up here.
Yes, I opened it. That's
yeah.
Correct. Let's share it then. Okay, here we go. This is the presentation for Dr.
Adedimeji.
Well, I can just go through the introductory parts. According to him, kindly permit me to acknowledge Professor Surajuddin Adamu and Dr. Abdul Wasil Adebisi for first contacting me to do this assignment. I believe my being here today was because of their prompting and nomination. I recognize the president of ATSN, Professor Orita Mebitaga, the secretary of the association and my friend with whom I've had rewarding academic engagements, Dr. Uche Oyali, as well as other members of the executive committee. I appreciate the LOC chair, Prof. Mrs. Ngozi Ilo, for her hard work and managerial dexterity, as well as all members of the committee. Well, given the little time that I know about this fledgling association and the milestones it has recorded, including floating a journal, it is difficult to imagine that it is just marking its first anniversary. It is evident that ATSN is blessed with leadership, which is everything, because as they say, everything rises and falls on leadership. One quote I learned in secondary school is, no business, no movement, no organization can become any greater than thinking minds and consciousness of the people who are part of the organization. The thinking minds and people's consciousness are certainly responsible for the successes recorded so far with ATSN. I applaud and salute the leadership and membership. Now, this is the outline of the presentation that Dr. Adedimeji has prepared: introduction, conceptualization, definition, stages, procedures, principles. He planned to talk about techniques, borrowing, calc, literal translation, transposition, modulation, equivalence, and reformulation, adaptation. All this we collect from Vinay Ada Bennett. Then he wanted to let us know about technologies, machine translation memory, translation management system, remote simultaneous interpreting technology. He identified another point as faith translations, rethinking trends. He intended to wrap it up with recommendations and conclusion. Now, introduction. Today, the world is more interconnected and interwoven than it has ever been any time in history. The flattening of the world through the Friedmanian globalization 3.0 and its associated dot-com bust has engendered more interactivity and engagements as the geographical borders are being increasingly shattered and systems are being shared. Definitely, like other areas of human endeavor, like politics, economy, culture, religion, globalization, has far-reaching implications for scholarship and the discipline of translation, which is ours. There are 3 stages of globalization, according to Dr. Adedimeji, and the third is the most striking and remarkable. In his well-acclaimed book, The World is Flat, Thomas L. Friedman identifies 3 great eras of globalization, which are globalization 1.0 from 1492 to 1800, when Columbus linked the New World and the Old World together, making the world shrink from a size large to a size that is called medium. Globalization 2.0 is the next one, when multinational companies as a dynamic force shrunk the world from a size that is known as medium, now to a size known as small. Then the next stage is globalization 3.0 from 2000 and still unfolding, whose dynamic force, the power of individuals to collaborate and compete, is now shrinking the world from a size that is known as small to a size that can be referred to as tiny, according to Freeman 2005. Still on the introduction, though the need for translation had been felt even before the Bible was translated to English by William Tyndale in 1526, and the Quran translated in 1649 by Alexander Ross, who translated it from the French translation of Sieur Dorier. The advances in civilization has made both public and the scholars realize the need for interlingual handshakes through the concept of translation. While translations were being done for years without much interest in translation studies as a discipline, Eugene Nader appeared to have first devoted scholarly interest in translation with a 1947 book on Bible translating, which she followed all with the publication of Toward a Science of Translation, published in 1964. Many books on translation have emerged, among which is Peter Newmark's approaches to translation, which is quite remarkable, published in 1981. For the purpose of pedagogy, the credit of publishing the first textbook to be used in the class belongs to Mildred L. Larson, whose meaning-based translation, A Guide to Cross-Language Equivalence, published in 1984, filled a vacuum at a time institutions were beginning to introduce programs in translation. So here we can talk about institutionalization of translation studies. With the advent of innovative technologies that are shaping every gamut of the world, from politics to economics, from culture to education, the question that has remained, the question now is whether technologies are a curse or a blessing to translation and to us as translators. That's a very, very cogent question. According to Dr. Adedeji, this paper attempts to rethink this question by, among other issues, examining the implications of innovative trends and technologies for translation and the society as a whole. Now we come to conceptualization. Translation is, one second, please. Basically the change of one form to another, from being the words, phrases, clauses, sentences, paragraphs, and passages of oral and written text. But beyond form, Dr. Adedeji states that it is crucial that the aim of translation is the transfer of meaning from the source language to the target language or receptor language. According to Dr. Adedimeji, it is a complex process that consists of studying the lexicon, the grammatical structure, communication situation, and cultural context of the source language text, analyzing it in order to determine its meaning, and then reconstructing this same meaning using the lexicon. We just heard about lexicon thanks to our eminent scholarly Dr. Obikudo. So using the lexicon and grammatical structure of which are appropriate in the receptor language and its cultural context. This gives us a kind of interconnectivity in the presentations which make them quite rich. Thanks again, Dr. Obikudo, for laying that background. So we move on. Sorry. Now we have this presentation. This translation is one of the few human activities in which the impossible occurs by principle. That's good. It says that the translators and of course interpreters will make the impossible possible. We create bridges across cultures, and we can see it from the picture that we have here of different languages, danke in German or Dutch, thank you in English, obrigado in Portuguese, merci in French, and the rest of them. Wonderful. Then Dr. Adedimeji presents the evolution of the translation industry, what we can call translation through history. We have a 1980 translation. We have the grouping of translation industry focus, the type of content translated, the language pairs involved, translation support tools and resources being used. So in the 80s, we have translation. The translation industry focus was documents. And the type of content being translated was mainly paper, language pairs about 10, according to the presenter, and the language translation support being used, the tools and resources, he said no tools, and mostly glossaries. Okay. Then in the 90s, we come to what we come to know as localization, with the use of software. And then the type of content being translated now is going digital. We have language pairs going to as much as 25, and this translation support now is TM and terminology software, translation memories. Then in the 2000s, we come to the era of globalization, with SIMCHIP being the focus of the industry. Then the type of content translated now evolved to what we know as web. The language pairs now grew to as much as 40, and then translation support tools and resources being used. Professor Adedimeji talks about GMS, centralized, corporate TMS. In 2010, we come to the era of integration, according to this presenter. The focus being integrated in enterprise systems, the content now being social software, and then language rising to about 400. Then the resources are also stated. We see the reference for this material here. Now, according to this presenter, despite the successes of technology in easing or threatening the work of translators, translation is basically a human activity comprising 8 stages, which are focused on 1983. The 8 stages are the literal translation, the pursuit of problematic detail and ambiguity, a re-examination of the literal and in light of meanings in the target language, adjusting the text with an idiomatic ear to the tone of the target language, adjusting the target. Just excuse me, I'll wait this person. Thank you. Okay. Adjusting the text with an idiomatic ear to the tone of the target language, adjusting the target with an idiomatic ear to turned back to the tone of the source language, attending to the sound patterns apparent in the source language and equivalent in the target language, passing the review of a native speaker of the source language who knows the target language well, that is the input of a revision or a reviser, polishing the text with a view to earlier drafts and other translators' versions. Okay. Now we move to translation procedures. Coping with the task of translation requires the following 8 procedures according to Larson 1982. 1, preparation, because they say he that prepares to fail is failing to, he that fails to prepare is preparing to fail. So preparation comes first. Analysis of the text, now transfer. Before we come to the initial draft, then we move to reworking the initial draft. We put the translation to test. Then we come to polishing it, finalizing it, and then preparing the manuscript for the publisher or the client, as the case may be. Now, we come to principles according to this presenter. We have about 12 of them. The translation must give the words of the original. These are basic principles of translation according to Dr. Adedimeji. The translation must give the ideas of the original. The translation should read like an original work. A translation should read like a translation. The translation should reflect the style of the original. A translation should possess the style of the translator. A translation should read as a contemporary of the original. A translation may never read as a contemporary of the translator. A translation may add to or omit from the original. A translation may never add to or omit from the original. A translation of verse should be in prose, and a translation of verse should be in verse. These are principles being propounded by Dr. Adedimeji, who will have been able to expatiate really on them, but unfortunately, we don't have him. Then we come to techniques. As it is well known, there is a difference between translation methods and techniques. While a method is applied to the old text, techniques vary with the same text or on a case-by-case basis, depending on the distinctive features of elements that are to be translated. Now, what is considered a standard taxonomy of translation procedures or techniques is what Vinay and Dabene propounded in their 1958 seminar study. And as we all know, just as a reminder, they are borrowing, literal translation, transposition, modulation, equivalence, or reformation and adaptation. We all know that this seminar work of Vinay Dabene is what we know today as the Bible of translation, which is still very, very useful and pertinent, despite that it was published some almost 60 years ago, And then we look at them one by one. Borrowing. This is using the same word in the original text in the target language. Calc. This is when the translator uses a neologism in the target language by adopting the structure of the source language. Literal translation, also known as metaphrase, which is also called word-for-word translation. According to Vinay Dabene, a literal translation can only be applied to languages that are very close to in cultural terms, and this will only be acceptable if the translated text retains the syntax, the same meaning, and the style of the original text. In Yoruba, for example, Kini aago sọ. In French, it will be quelle heure-t-il. It cannot be literally translated as what does the time say? Because, of course, the time or the clock cannot talk. We cannot translate Kini aago sọ to mean what does the time say in English. This is because the two languages are not close. Very interesting example. Then we move to transposition. This is changing one grammatical category to another without altering the meaning of the text. This technique introduces a change in grammatical structure. Television in Yoruba is rendered as ẹ̀rọ amóhùnmáwòrán, for example, a machine that captures both the voice and the image, with the form changing from a word to a phrase. The same thing applies to radio as ẹ̀rọ asọ̀rọ̀mágbèsì. In Yoruba, ẹ̀rọ asọ̀rọ̀mágbèsì, now translated as the machine that talks without waiting for a response, without getting a response, ẹ̀rọ asọ̀rọ̀mágbèsì. Those are examples, according to Dr. Adedimeji, examples of transposition. Beautiful. Then the next technique is modulation. This is changing the form of the text by introducing a semantic change or perspective. In translating Dio Fagunwa's Yoruba classic Ogboju Ode Ninu Igbe Irumole, for example, it was translated as A Forest of 1,000 Demons, a hunter's saga, 1968. Wole Soyinka modulated the title to bring another perspective. Beautiful example. The next technique, according to Dr. Adedimeji, is quoting Vinay Dabene, of course, is equivalence or reformulation. And this is a technique of using a completely different expression to transmit the same reality. Through this process, institutional names, interjections, idioms, proverbs are conveniently translated. Charity begins at home, for example, is equivalent to Ile ni atinko eshorode, meaning literally we take fashion from inside to house. Charity begins at home. In French, it is charité bien ordonnée commence par soi-même. In Igbo, Dr. Oyale will help later. In Urobo, Professor Mebitayan will help later. Those are beautiful examples. Now the next one is adaptation, also called cultural substitution or cultural equivalent. A replacement that is better suited to the culture of the target language is sought. This makes the text to be more familiar. There is cultural equivalent to the English T, which the Yoruba will call echo. That's why they will say in Yoruba, that is, if the Englishman takes his tea, I take my hot pap or a cold boner. A very good example I use for my students when we talk about adaptation actually is this example of snow, which we have here, for instance, in North America, in Canada, for instance, snow, which does not exist in Africa, in Nigeria culture. So, and that is why when Bishop Ajayi Crowther translated the Bible from English to Yoruba, where in the book of Isaiah, where the Bible is talking about, if our sin are as red as crimson, they will be as white as snow. There, Ajayi Crowther used, he didn't use singing, he said there will be, so the image he used is cotton, which is the closest, to the African context. I love that example when we talk about adaptation. Well, now we have this list of examples that Dr. Adedimeji is sharing. I think some of them are in Arabic language, some in Yoruba. Aniyan, intention, alafia, I think it's Yoruba and Arabic language. Good health and well-being. Alebu, alaibi, that is Arabic. Fault, I don't speak so much of Arabic, but I know Wabi Sidini Ilima. Wabi Sidini Ilima means God increase my knowledge. So I pray that God increases my knowledge as I step into the shoes of Dr. Adedimeji speaking Arabic language that I don't master, actually. So I ask for your gafara, Motoro gafara, if I mispronounce any of the words. We also have Asiri, secret, Alubosa, albasa, onion, Alubarika, albarika, which is blessing in English, Adua, which is prayer in English, Fari, which is pride or bluff, Fitina, God forbid fitina, which is trouble or danger or worry, Musiba, which is misfortune, God forbid, Moleka, which is malakai, Sababi, which is reason or cause, Kadara, which is destiny, Tuba, which is Tuba, okay, which is repent, Wakati, which is I think that is a good comparison, English, Arabic, and Yoruba. Very interesting. Now we move to technologies because we are in the era of technologies. And again, Dr. The previous speaker has just, initiated us into that new world of digitizing, indigenous languages. Now we go to technologies. Computer-aided translation is the use of software to assist a human translator in the translation process. The translation is created by the human translator, of course, but certain aspects are processed by the software, according to Maillard 2013. CAT or CAT is a broad term and typically includes any and all programs that facilitate the actual translation process. Most CAT tools include the following: ability to translate a variety of source file formats in a single editing environment without the translator needing to use the file formats associated software. Then we have translation memory, TM, and various utilities or processes that are integrated into the software and increase translator productivity and consistency. I hope I'm not too fast. Machine translation is an automatic translation from one language to another. The benefit of machine translation is that it is possible to translate large swatches of text in a very short time, and that is quite true. From experience, I can confirm that machine translation helps us to save a lot of time, but the truth also is that, machine translation cannot still, be a substitute to human translator, because machine translation is not complete without the input of the human translator. My point of view, apologies. Machine translation provides a quick and comprehensive understanding of a document. If you specially train the machine to your needs, machine translation provides a perfect combination of quick and cost-effective translations. With a specially trained machine, machine translation can capture the context of full sentences before translating them, which provides one with a high quality and human sounding output. Some machine translation software that automatically translate text from one language to another include Google Translate, that we are all familiar with, Microsoft Translator, and the DeepL. There's always a problem with the pronunciation of that particular software. Then a translation memory is a database that stores sentences, paragraphs, or segments of text that have been translated before. That's why it's called translation memory. Each entry or segment in the translation memory includes the original language, known as the source, and its translation known as the target. These pairs are called translation units or TUs. Translation machines are used with translation software such as SZ Trado Studios and automatically suggest stored identical or similar matches as new documents are being translated. Through this, expressions or text segments that have been previously translated never need to be retranslated. Translation memories support the localization process by improving the quality, the speed, the consistency, and efficiency of every translation job. They can be automatically reused when translating similar or identical content. A translation management system is a software which supports the management and automation of the translation process. It helps via automation to organize the localization workflow, track the progress of the translation projects being done, and also reduce manual tasks. Translation management systems usually include three main components, according to Dr. Adedimeji. They are the computer-assisted translation tool, then the workflow automation tools, project management, and administration. CAD tools include features that help to improve translation speed, of course, quality and consistency, such as glossary, a list of industry-specific terminology. It ensures that specific terms are always translated in the same manner. Machine translation and translation memory. Then we move to remote simultaneous interpretation, because when we talk about translation studies, of course, we are talking about the twin disciplines or twin professions of translation interpretation. Remote simultaneous interpreting permits me to say that this is actually in vogue now. Why? Because of the lockdown imposed by by COVID-19, most interpreting jobs are now being done remotely, and that is why this topic is very, very important. Remote simultaneous interpretation, RSI, is one of the latest interpreting technologies considered the best solution for simultaneous interpretation at conferences, web meetings, where many languages are spoken. Powered by a cloud-based platform, it combines high quality with considerable time and money saving when compared to traditional simultaneous interpretation. Of course, it saves costs because participants don't need to participate at a conference. They don't need to gather in a place. They can be in the comfort of their rooms, and even the translator will be in the comfort of his office and translating online. For instance, a member of our session just sent me a message that he had to leave because he had a Zoom interpreting to be handled at the same time. So that's quite important, very interesting. The main difference with traditional simultaneous interpretation is that interpreters are not present at an event venue, but they work from a different location, a translation office, or even in their rooms. This is facilitated by an interface that allows them to see and hear what is going on as if they were physically present, while technology streams their interpretation in real time to the target audience. Attendants can listen to the interpretation through a downloadable web application on electronic device, such as Zoom is quite possible, and it's interesting. Then there is, let me check what's translation machine achieves corona vocabulary. That is the title. We have, sorry, 1 second. We have lockdown extension. Again, is Arabic language. I cannot read this, I confess. So I ask for your gafara again. Morbidity rates, whatever that means in the Arabic language, mortality rates, social distancing, which is a common terminology now, band gathering, a cluster of cases. Oh, it would have been wonderful if Dr. Adedimeji is in person. Closure, houses of worship, worship centers, gathering places, track the way it moves, take actions, partial lockdown, nationwide lockdown, and so on and so forth. Wonderful. Okay, we move. Lifting the lockdown. Those are the terminologies that we are familiar with. No thanks to COVID-19. Easing the lockdown, testing positive, unlock the country, open up the country, testing negative or tested negative, death toll, to carry out human trials is a coronavirus vaccine or for a coronavirus vaccine, implement mass quarantine, school closures, mandatory quarantine, ban gatherings, etc. Never before seen measure social distancing, socially distanced, final exams, second wave, and so on and so forth. I think I will skip to save time. Outbreak, epidemic, pandemic, these are vocabulary or terminologies that Dr. Adedimeji has prepared to share with us, both in English and in Arabic language. Obviously, Professor Adedimeji translates, in this pair of language, which is quite rare in our context, especially in Nigeria, I mean. Then he wanted to talk about faith translations. I hope I will not fail to do justice to this topic again. The truth is that despite the potential of technologies, they are prone to embarrassing errors, and everyone has experienced awkward Facebook translation. Yeah, that's very important. Awkward Facebook translation. I did a paper on this Facebook translation some 4 or 5 years ago about an article by our revered Daddy Adeboye, an article he published in Open Heavens, which I tried to run through Facebook translations, and it gave very, 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 very awkward and horrible results. So I can relate to this, what Dr. Adedimeji is talking about, faith translation. I'm sure we, at one point or the other, we have had similar experiences. A compilation of 20 worst examples that neglected this crucial marketing step is provided by a website. They are Banif International translated a slogan touting finally of Foster seats as fly in leather into Spanish as fly naked. Oh, wow. 2, Claro launched a calling iron called Mystic. Germany, even though mist is German slang for manual. Wow. Coca-Cola's brand name, when first marketed in China, was sometimes translated as bite the wax tadpole, Coca-Cola. Oh my God. Interesting. Colgate launched toothpaste in France named, not seeing this well, okay, named Cuique, without realizing that it's also the name of a French pornographic magazine. Can you imagine that? Oh my God. Cost translated its slogan, turn it loose, into Spanish, where it is a colloquial term for having diarrhea. Oh my God. Electrolux at one time marketed its vacuum cleaners in the US with the tagline, nothing sourced like an Electrolux. Quite interesting. Ford blundered, Dr. Adedimeji said, when marketing the Pinto in Brazil, because the term in Brazilian Portuguese means tiny male genitals. I said that quietly. Frank Pedu's tagline, it takes a tough man to make a tender chicken, got translated into Spanish as it takes a sexually stimulated man to make a chicken affectionate. Oh my God. Wow, this is interesting. Gaba marketed baby food in Africa with a cute baby on the label without knowing that in Ethiopia, for example, products usually have pictures on the label of what's inside, since many consumers can't read. So obviously, they think it's a baby that's inside that packaging, my God. IKEA products were marketed in Thailand with Swedish names that in the Thai language mean sex and getting to third base. Oh my God. Faith translation indeed. Thank you, Dr. Adedimeji, for these examples. KFC made Chinese consumers a bit apprehensive when finger-licking good was translated as eat your fingers off. Mercedes-Benz, the popular Mercedes-Benz, entered the Chinese market under the brand name Benzi, which means rush to die. Oh my God. Nike had to recall thousands of products when a decoration intended to resemble fire on the back of the shoes resembled the Arabic word for Allah. That would be called, what is the word again? Excuse me, I forgot the word. Panasonic launched a web-ready PC with a Woody Woodpecker theme using the slogan, "Touch Woody, the Internet Picker." Packer pen, when expanding into Mexico, mistranslated, "It won't leak in your pocket and embarrass you," into "It won't leak in your pocket and make you pregnant." Wow. Paxam, an Iranian consumer goods company, markets laundry soap using the Farsi word for snow, resulting in packages labeled bath soap. Pepsi's slogan, "Pepsi brings you back to life," was debuted in China as "Pepsi brings you back from the grave." My God. Still on faith translations compiled by Dr. Adedimeji. Number 18, Puff marketed its tissues under that brand name in Germany, even though Puff is German slang for a brothel. Imagine that. The American Dairy Association replicated its "Got Milk" campaign in Spanish-speaking countries, where it was translated into "Are you lactating?" Apologies to our women. Vicks introduced its cough drops into the German market without realizing that the German pronunciation of V is F, making Vicks slang for sexual intercourse. Oh my God. Just like an Hausa man will say, "Fifu" for people. I think something like that. Now, rethinking trends. I think we are getting close to the end of the presentation. I appreciate you for your patience. Thank you for bearing with me, trying to, do my best to run through Dr. Adedeji's presentation. Now, how do we rethink the trends? I need to really get this tied to a cure or a blessing. The trends and innovations in translation technologies are viewed to put the jobs of translators at risk. Arguments have been advanced to buttress how translators are circumvented while assistive technologies are relied upon. I actually had an encounter with a student of mine some years ago in Nigeria who wanted to enroll for a master's degree in translation. And our friends were discouraging her, saying, "No, you don't need to do a master's degree in translation because translators will soon be replaced by machines." Then she asked for my opinion. I said, "No, it's not possible." She has completed a master's degree in translation. She's running a PhD in translation now in the University of Regina. However, research has shown that cats result in sentence salad made at 2000 due to the over-recycling of sentences and parts thereof that may not suit the context and question of the given text. Then, focusing on text that only appears at the sentence level places great difficulties on providing an accurate and fluent translation that adheres to the cohesive and contextual norms of the target language. Now, what are the implications according to Dr. Adedimeji? Reliance on TM matches a tactic known as peephole translation that poses a great threat to translation quality. I think I can call that peephole translation another computer jargon that says garbage in, garbage out. That is what I can think of now. And consistency, according to the authors or scholars cited here. The implication of this, according to Dr. Adedimeji, is that while technologies are good, and welcome at this stage, in this age of convergence, they are not enough. Of course, they are not enough. They can only support and facilitate. They can never replace or validate human efforts. Now, some food for thought, thinking points, according to Dr. Adedimeji. Artificiality versus naturality, informativity versus connectivity, text versus context, form versus content, ordinarity versus creativity, structurality versus functionality, and sociality versus culturality. Recommendations and conclusion. Thank you so much, distinguished participants, for your patience. We will soon be done with this presentation. We have come to recommendations and conclusion. Dr. Adedimeji offers the following recommendation. Translators should embrace trends and technologies by considering them tools and not rivals. They are tools, like servants and not masters, if I may put it that way. As most of the CAS systems are driven by commercial interest, scholars and academics should explore translations of academic works and literary texts. Interesting. Nigerians are religious. Of course, we are religious, quite religious. And there are translations of the Bible. Dr. Oyale did a very, very interesting thesis, PhD thesis on Bible translation in the context of Igbo language. I recommend it strongly to all participants. It's online. And the Quran into English. Scholars should rise to the task of translating works written in indigenous languages, just like Dr. Obikubo has given us an insight into how we can, digitize and use and create lexicons. Dr. Adedimeji is corroborating that by saying scholars should rise to the task of translating works written in indigenous languages to English, just as Wole Soyinka and Olu Obafemi did to works of D.O. Fagunwa. Conferences and seminars of this nature, of course, webinars, should be organized to promote the ideas of translation. So this is where we come to say thank you again to ATSN for putting this together, despite the itches. We apologize for the itches. It's our first time. We promise we will do better next time. So conferences of this nature, we have started and we continue and we do better. Nigerians should be encouraged to take the learning of indigenous languages seriously. Very, very important. Very, very important. Seriously, in order to avert the dangerous trend of reversed monolingualism. And this is very, especially for those of us that are scholars. Some of us have children that can speak English, can speak French, but they cannot speak Yoruba if it's their parents' language, or Igbo, as the case may be. It's a trend that should be corrected. My children here, I try as much as possible to make sure that they speak Yoruba. In fact, every Sunday, they speak with their grandma in Ibadan, and it is Yoruba class every Sunday. I put them on the phone with their grandma in Ibadan, their grandma in Ilorin, and with their grandma in Ibadan. That's my mom. She's not fluent in English. So I make sure that they learn Yoruba from her. In fact, they look forward to it every Sunday. They know that they must have their Yoruba class, because we don't want them to grow up as an alien in Canada, whereas they don't understand their mother tongue. So it's important. Nigerians should be encouraged to take the learning of indigenous languages seriously in order to avoid the dangerous trend of reversed monolingualism. Then the world is fast evolving. We've come to the conclusion, according to Dr. Adedimeji, the world is fast evolving, and the needs of the day center more on collaboration. Of course, in Yoruba they say Agbajo Owo la fi n soya. Collaboration, cooperation, accommodation, multilateralism, and internationalization. We cannot afford to remain in our comfort zones as local champions. We got to internationalize, relate across borders. Very important. Translation offers a window of opportunity for global cooperation, for national cohesion, and intercultural solidarity. The development of CATS and the advancements in the areas of artificial intelligence, machine learning, big data provide opportunities to leverage on, though not without their challenges, of course, which are not insurmountable in networking people and cultures. Translation has potentials to heal the world. I agree with that. To heal, especially in a world that is presently bleeding under the scourge of coronavirus. Translation has potentials to heal the world and promote peace at various levels as it shatters exclusivity and advances commonality. Scholars like Michel Bala, Elenshke, Michel Paya have emphasized the need to rethink the extant translation methods. So we need, as scholars, we really need to start rethinking, translation methods and adapting them, I would say, to our different contexts, the Nigerian context in this case. They added more methods which are contemporary trends in convergence, like explicitation, collocation, and compensation. Now, he explains. Explicitation. This is introducing specific details in the text of the target language. Collocation is using a sequence of words that always goes together in the source language. Compensation is providing allusion or reference that does not appear in one part of the text in the target language. Then we have a list of references provided graciously by our speaker in absentia. And I think with this, we come to the end of this presentation that I've attempted to imitate. So I thank you again for your patience and your understanding. I think at this point, I will ask maybe the LOC chair to please take over for a few minutes so I can catch my breath and take some coffee. Thank you very much.
I must thank you so much.
Well done, Doc.
Thank you so much for a wonderful job. You are not the one who wrote the paper, but you really did justice to it. We sincerely appreciate you. It's a pity we did not have the keynote address from Professor Kolawole. Madam President.
Yes, Professor, I'm with you. Yes.
Sorry?
Hello, ma.
Yes.
Yeah, you were saying, Professor Ilu. Yeah, you were saying what?
Hello, ma.
I was saying that it's a pity we didn't, we couldn't get the presenter for Professor Kolawole to present the keynote address.
Okay.
Because we really have a short of time now.
Yes, yes.
We have less than 30 minutes. So, but if the person, the presenter is...
Hello, ma.
You can send to the you can send the maybe we can send the papers to the participants.
He has already sent the paper.
Maybe we can read, not reading, just run through, just click the slides for us to just see. Maybe it will take more than 5 or 6 minutes.
Exactly. So,
just click the slides.
Dr. Yali.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is it possible? Do you have it with you? Can you run through it for us?
Not to read through, just read for us to just cite, not to read through, just read that.
Not to read through, just to cite it.
Yeah. If you have it, as it's clicking while reading, it will take up to 5 minutes to do that.
Yeah, you're not necessarily just to.
Dr. Defa is responding.
Yeah. Well, it's a keynote. We don't just want to leave it like that. Yeah.
Well, it's better. Let's Dr. Oyali read through if it's possible.
Oh, okay.
Read through or just click the slides. Just click the slides.
It's not even in the slide, but just share the screen. Share your screen. Flip through. Is it possible?
Can you see the screen?
Oh, good.
Yes.
Yeah, this is the full text. Can you all hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Just slowly. You don't need to.
This is the full text. The title is Translation Studies in Nigeria, Issues and then Perspectives. I will read the preamble and then scroll through the rest. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, it is indeed a great privilege to present this talk on translation studies in Nigeria with reference to issues and perspectives. When I was contacted to give this talk with the latitude to select a title around the topic of perspectives of translations in Nigeria, I suspected that the invitation is based not necessarily on the fact that I am a member of ATSA, which is Association for Translation Studies in Africa, but probably because I have been involved in the teaching of translation studies in my university for 2 decades now, and should have knowledge of some of the problems. Let me close my WhatsApp, please. Well, and should have knowledge of some of the problems confronting the teaching of translation in Nigeria. It is a fact that at present, there are fundamental challenges confronting translation studies in our institutions today at diverse levels, some of which we shall try to discuss during this talk. I would like to thank the leadership of ATSA for the great honor of inviting me at the first anniversary of this great association. I also want to congratulate all of us. I also want to, sorry, the person talking, could you mute yourself? I also want to congratulate all of us for this historic moment and for the wonderful work we've done in this past year, mobilizing our people and interpreting the roles of translation teachers in order to illuminate our path to the future. This talk shall therefore briefly discuss one after the other what translation is all about, challenges of translation, history of translation studies, the Nigerian experience, and perspectives of the teaching of translation, recommendation, and conclusion. So here is the introduction. What is translation is the first subtopic here, where from what I see here, he tries to explain what translation means from different perspectives given by different scholars. After defining translation, he talked about the distinction between translation and interpretation. And then, why does translation matter? Let me quickly read this part, please. The question is a complex one, and an attempt to answer it would mean discussing its contributions to the various elements of the civilized life of the world. This would mean providing answers to other questions such as why is it significant to authors, publishers, readers, book reviewers, linguists, anthropologists, philosophers, and so on. It would also discuss its relevance to the literary tradition in any of the world languages. We read translations all the time, and in most cases, it is a discipline that fends off the insidious, damaging question of whether it is, can be, or should be possible. Translation is important as an exercise in accuracy, economy, and elegance in manipulating a variety of L1 registers. It is a valuable means of promoting understanding between individuals, groups, organizations, and nations, as well as a medium of, as Grossman writes, translation not only plays its important traditional role as the means that allows us access to literature originally written in one of the countless languages we cannot read, but it also represents a concrete literary presence with the crucial capacity to ease and make more meaningful our relationship to those, excuse me, to those who we may not have had connection before. Translation helps us to know, to see from a different angle, to attribute new value to what once may have been unfamiliar. As nations and as individuals, we have a critical need for that kind of understanding and insights. The alternative is unthinkable. And then he now gives a historical background of translation, and then problems associated with translation, some of which I believe Dr. Dedimeji also highlighted in his presentation. He talked about linguistic relativity, which talks about the different ways individual languages view the world, dissect the world, which also is a problem in translation. And the language universals, what all languages in the world supposedly share. And then implications of linguistic relativity and universals for translation practice, which is not so long, so let me quickly read some paragraphs. Although Sapir-Whorf and other relativists do not have any special and detailed work on translation theory, their linguistic metaphysics implies a total impossibility of translation. This is because to them, thought process inheres in the internal structure of a given language. And since the internal structures of L1 differs radically from that of L2, there are certain things that are more difficult to express in some languages than in others. It is clear from that point that any translator who wants to replace any linguistic system by another would encounter some insurmountable difficulties, since it is difficult or even impossible to translate this whole into another linguistic and conceptual system. Studies of linguistic relativity, for example, Colorway 2010, have shown that it has a lot of implication for translation practice. Each exercise of translating involves some loss of meaning or some translation errors due to a number of factors, which actually influence the product of any translation work. The basic loss is on a continuum between over-translation, which is increased, we talked about increased details, providing increased details, and under-translation, increased generalization. The implication of text linguistics for translation is that the whole text should be assumed as a unit of translation rather than isolating meanings of words. This is the reason Vinet and Debonnet insist that, this is French, I don't know French, yeah. The translator must know all the nuances of the foreign language and possess all the resources of his mother tongue. He should be more knowledgeable in the grammar and vocabulary of the languages in question. The fact that two speakers have the same language may not assume a perfect communication No doubt, as most translation theoreticians conjecture, translation cannot avoid running into the problems of loss of information at one level or another in the translation process. The practice of translation is a universal phenomenon. Just like any other human activity, it is done across the world and amplifies the function of language by ensuring that meaning is transmitted across many linguistic barriers. The production and comprehension of a text are subjective activities because some aspects of language ascribe to each language its distinctive character and must be separately learned. However, there are parallels and similarities in all aspects of language: grammar, phonology, lexicon. The man who writes and the man who reads brings each one to the task his way of seeing the world and of feeling it. Their experiences are personal to them. Each individual's way of thinking, his knowledge, his understandings, and so on, are subjective, even to the level of choice of words and forms of expression. The next section asks whether translation is an art or a science. I want to believe the text says it's both. And then he presents on the evolution of translation studies as an academic discipline. And then we move further down to translation, the link between translation studies and cultural studies. And then he zeroes in on the Nigerian experience. Let me read that part. I think it's key. Translation studies, the Nigerian experience. Translation studies is still in a state of flux in Nigeria. It is seen as a point of intersection between many disciplines. That is, it is a discipline in which other disciplines may variously legitimately expressed an interest. It is very pertinent at this stage to have a cursory look at the early times of translation studies in Nigeria. Translation studies in Nigeria is an evolving discipline, even though it was an integral part of foreign language teaching at the tertiary level, and indeed a significant part of French as a subject at the secondary school level. Translation was not considered as a discipline on its own until in the early 90s. As ILO 2018 puts it, it is interesting to know that translation was introduced as a course at advanced level French of West African Examination Council. And at the National Certificate in Education in the acquisition of a foreign language, especially French. This dates as far back as in the 70s. Subsequently, translation also became a course to be reckoned with in the acquisition of a degree in modern European or foreign languages, as well as in some linguistics, English, and literature departments across the country, the African sub-region, and Africa as a whole. Togo, more than half of universities in Nigeria offer translation as a course. And then the Nigerian Association of Translators and Interpreters, NATI, then it presents on the Association of Translation Studies in Africa, ATSA, which was founded on the 4th of September 2016 at the University of Nairobi. Then the Association for Translation Studies in Nigeria, which is the association that organized this program. I read this part. Excuse me. This is an offshoot of ATSA, domesticated and launched in Nigeria on the 20th of November 2019 at the Delta State University, Abraka. During a conference of the group of ATSA, organized under the leadership of Professor Rita Mebitagan and Dr. Mariam Birma. The association has the same objectives and visions as ATSA, only that it is being fully directed by Nigerians. The editorial committee with the following: Dr. Uchenna, as the editor, Dr. Adeyefa, secretary, Dr. Eza Fulukwe, and Dr. Afolabin, who is based in Canada, was later inaugurated. The association's objective includes promotion of translation studies in Nigeria and beyond, organization of conferences, workshops, and seminars, as well as publishing journal, and offer a high-level publication outlet to scholars from Nigeria and beyond who are researching into translation and interpreting in order to advance the field of translation and interpreting in Nigeria. The efforts of Professor Mebitagan, Dr. Mariam Birma, and others who worked tirelessly towards the growth of this association have to be specially recognized and appreciated in this regard. Within the past 1 year, the association has lived up to expectation in bringing together scholars in translation studies across universities and institutions in Nigeria. I say bravo to the association and the steering committee members. As a young association, there are still some projects that need to be pursued further. These include the enormous progress made so rapidly in the past year within the discipline itself, and more would need to be done on the interrelationship between scholarship and practice. Then this section looks at the evolving issues on the teaching of translation studies in Nigeria. It is short, so I'll quickly read. Everything in the world is governed by certain rules and principles, and translation studies is not an exception. Each area of translation has its own scope and limitations. A translator requires illustrating the most common basic principles, problems, challenges, and strategies before translating important and sensitive text, and particularly revealed message. If a translator is unfamiliar with basic principles of translation, injustice, both with source language text and its rendering in target language is certain. Translation is not merely substitution and replacement of linguistic items, as some bilinguals think. Instead, it is a complex and challenging job. It is basically not a process of matching surface forms by rules of correspondence, but rather a more complex procedure of analysis, transferring, and restructuring. The phrase complex procedure demands some principles, as the procedure is based upon certain principles. For example, principles of analysis, of transferring, of restructuring. In the course of teaching, most translation teachers in Nigeria, like teachers of translation studies across the globe, face some general challenges, which include, among others, making their students understand the following. The first is getting the desired meaning in the target language, and then source language influences, idiom and idiomatic expressions. Yeah, so I go to the concluding remarks. Translation studies, compared with older disciplines, is still a young discipline, particularly in Nigeria, and it still has a long way to go. So there is still the need for more general theoretical and pragmatic discussions as to the nature of translation and the needs for accessible terminology with which to engage in such discussions. Multilingualism, or at least bilingualism, is becoming both biologically and culturally advantageous in the modern world. Learning a second foreign language, such as French, Arabic, Chinese, German in Nigeria will increase our quota in the world. Language is about privilege and access, but simply knowing how to parrot words is not enough to make us portable through the world. However, the politics of who gets to go where and who accesses certain places of power and opportunities are far more complicated than merely speaking a second international language. As explained earlier, translation studies is now one of the foremost and perhaps one of the most exciting modern developments for the language profession. Recommendations. Arising from the discussions above, I would want to make the following recommendations to advance the promotion of translation studies in Nigeria. First, the establishment of a separate Department of Translation Studies in all Nigerian universities where translation courses will be taught, leading to the award of the first degree program in translation in the universities, and which will cater for formal language profession as it is the trend in the developed world. Two, quality standards for the training, assessment, practice, and employment of interpreters and translators to be established at government level, against which any relevant government and public service tenders should be defined and monitored. Regular training and retraining of translators is highly necessary. Three, provision of well-equipped modern language laboratories, computer-aided translation tools with all their components should be provided for tertiary institutions to aid the teaching of translation studies in our institutions. While recognizing the fact that translation and interpretation enable us to be understood by people who do not speak our language, and the need to provide students with a solid theoretical grounding, translation instructors should place strategic importance in equipping their students with the skills that will help them to enter and subsequently survive in the translation market. That is not to say that teaching translation theory is to be abandoned altogether. Rather, translator training curricula should be modified to accommodate both practical and theoretical aspects of a translator's work. They should aim to successfully marry the ivory tower, which is the academia, with the real life setting. Translation practice and teaching should involve more than finding the equivalent of unknown words and transferring them to the target language. It should involve developing awareness in understanding the overall meaning as well as the cultural motives of the target language. Translation teachers must have a sound linguistic knowledge of both the source language and the target language. Translation students should be involved in students' industrial work experience scheme. This is what Mumbai 2019 called translation internship in the translator training program in Nigerian universities. An internship is a period of work experience offered by an employer to give students, the general public. I think there's something missing here. The general public needs more enlightenment and education on the role of linguists, interpreters, translators, bilingual professionals, and educationists. Therefore, more conferences, seminars, workshops on translation studies should be organized by relevant associations. Translation journals that center on Nigerian situation should be inaugurated. Affiliation with international associations of translation studies to keep abreast of happenings about translation across the globe. Government should make transparent and consistent language policies and strategies at every level. Funds should be made available for training, course development, and peer and applied research on translation and interpretation. ATSA and NITI, the professional bodies of translators and interpreters, should be more active and endeavor to get to the institutions where translation is taught early enough to enable teachers of the discipline participate actively and make meaningful and useful contributions in the field. Long live ATSN, long live ATSA, long live Nigeria. Thank you for listening. And this is the list of references. Thank you so much.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Yali, for this wonderful presentation on behalf of our keynote speaker, who is unavoidably absent and is representative unable to, connect. Thank you very much for saving the day. It was a very enriching and rich presentation. I believe our participants will agree with me. At this point, I think what we're going to do, distinguished participants, we have actually run so much behind schedule. This webinar is supposed to last 3 hours to end at the dot of 3 p.m. Nigerian time, 9 a.m. here, and now it's going to be 6 minutes to 9. So I think we quickly, with the permission of the LOC chair, quickly go through a few questions that we have, which are mainly general, such that we can call it a day in another 10-15 minutes, so that, because I know participants might have other things scheduled after the time. If the LOC chair will permit, I think we can go about it that way, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Prof. Ilo, you are not muted. You are muted, I mean. Okay. Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. So the questions are actually general. So I think I will just maybe read a few and maybe designate one of the panelists to attempt to answer to the best of his or her ability. There is no obligation. This first one talked about, I say, please explain how translators can be educated as presented by the former presenter. That is, I think this question is referring to the goodwill message by Professor, by the ATSN Vice President, talking about education of translators or training. Of course, it's important. How can we be educated as translators? Is of course through formal training, through curriculum development and enhancements, like the president said in our speech, and also in Professor Kolawole's speech, address, keynote lecture that was read to us. I think I can just attempt to answer that question briefly that way. training and education of translators. Then we hope to get the recorded video at the end. That is a question from Bello Ibrahim from Kalam University in Katsina. Of course, we're going to make it available by God's grace. It's been recorded, and though we lost some parts and with some issues, we try to see how we can edit it and make it available. This question says, thank you for the opportunity. Is there any chance of enrolling in an online professional program in translation? Prof. Ilo, will you please answer that question? I know I have an answer, but I don't want to monopolize the discussion. So, Prof. Ilo, Professor Ilo, please, you are muted. Okay, Professor Ilo is muted. We cannot hear her. Dr. Adeyefa, I can see you are muted. Could you attempt to answer that question, please, if you don't mind?
Well, firstly, I will quickly want to add to the concept of how can translation be educated. You know, well, translation, some people have contexted the fact that translation, well, is something that is an art, and of course, it cannot be trained, and probably it cannot be handled in a classroom setting. But one significant thing is in the fact that, let's look at music. Everybody can sing, and at the same time, people are in music industry. People are trained how to sing, to use software. People are trained how to sing, to use other way. And when they scientifically or technically comprises these things together, it becomes another thing unique. So obviously, and it's because unfortunately, Professor Kolawole was not around. In his presentation, he talks about translation as science, and of course, translation as art. So when we see translation as art, we see that, okay, I have the gift, I have the talent, I can go ahead and be doing it. Of course, you can go ahead and be doing it. But seeing translation as science give you a lot of advantages over seeing translation as art alone. Because with translation as science, you know what to say and how to say it. You know what the culture is talking about translation. I was interpreting for some students who came to University of Ibadan, and they were with the vice chancellor and the others. So at a point in time, because of cultural differences, so what the person was saying, I have to make sure that I cannot present what the student was saying directly like that. So in other words, the knowledge of how cultures are interwoven and how culture interacts and the nexus between culture will help us. All these things are done when we are seeing translation as a science, and of course, translation as something that could be trained. So obviously it's good for people, even though the so-called interpreter, the present discourse on translation, they are sometimes looking at the community translations, looking at how people who are not professional translators, how they are going into translations and how they could be helped, how people can, for instance, our ATSN, how we can come in and see what are their likes, where are the ways that we can come in, so that Nigerian as a body, as a system in translatology, will know that there are still other things that can be hidden. Not only I'm a translator, so if I say I'm a translator, for instance, if I should say that, of course, I'm more of translation studies and translation research than translation practice. But the fact remains that as a translator also, we need some idea so that our language, most especially our indigenous languages, and the peculiarity of our culture will not be subsided as the course goes. So translation is very, very important to be very important to be involved in translation training too. So going to the other one, which is trying to talk about precisely, we are talking about
online.
Where should online
professional program
online translation programming. Well, ATSN, the most is one of the quest of this association to see to it that not only the Nigerian languages, but the minority language, every language, we are seeing how we can come together, how we can inform the federal government, how we can involve scholars in translation, in linguistics, in anthropology, in archaeology, and how we can bring all these things together to make sure that we are reflecting what the global discourse is discussing, where people are talking about globalization. In other words, bringing the local into the scene, bringing the local into the global. So it's part of the quest of this ATSN, and we strongly believe that we are going to do more to that. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Adeyefa, for really dwelling on that issue of training as part of the requirements to be a professional translation. Professor Tude Amosun will say, n'est pas traducteur qui veut. That is, Professor Tude Amosun, that it is not everybody that claims to be a translator or that wants to be a translator can translate. So thank you for that insight. Now to conclude on the issue of whether there is online professional program, right now in Nigeria, I'm not aware of any right now in Nigeria. So that is the basic answer I will provide. Then the next question says,
May I just say something on the professional thing?
Yes, sir, please.
At the beginning, I'll even take 30 seconds. At the beginning, you did mention the distinction between NITI and ATSN.
Yes.
So it's also good that we also mentioned the aspects the aspects that fall directly under the purview of NITI. I think this is part of it because NITI is also into professionalization of translation, giving certificates, to people who are real translators, going through some trainings before you are recognized as a qualified translator in different languages. So NITI, this is where the complementary role of NITI and ATSN comes in. So NITI would be the better platform to address this issue of professionalization in translation.
Thank you.
Let me stop there.
Thank you.
Let me chip in something.
Yes, ma'am.
Let me chip in something.
Yes,
well, whether it is NITI or not, the issue is that in most of our universities, translation is being taught. And in one of my papers, what I advocated is that we have other departments. For instance, we have the Department of English, we have the Linguistics Department. We should start with what we call a collaboration. We should start with collaborating the English department where translation is taught, linguistic department where translation is also taught, and then you have the Department of Foreign Languages or Modern European Languages where translation is taught. Let's start by bringing this multidisciplinary aspect of it and see what we can do. For instance, there are so many translations going on our radios and televisions. These are avenues we can use to bring about collaboration before we can. Because from Kobu's goodwill message, he's talking about education. And what do we talk about education? We are already in the university system where this education is being practiced. So we should be able to start something by collaborating before we can move further.
Thank you very much, Prof. Ilo, for that insight too. The next, and I think the final question that we will take, I've gone through all the other questions, is majorly about the membership of ATSA. The question is saying, is it possible for a non-Nigerian to become a member of ATSN? How to become a member of ATSA? So I will give the floor to our able president to please answer that question. Prof.
Exactly.
Yes, ma'am, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Afolabi. We have two things here. I need to be sure what is being asked. Is it ATSN or ATSN?
Yeah, the person is talking about
I need to be sure.
ATSN and ATSA. How can a non-Nigerian be a member of ATSN?
What the person wants to.
Yes, ma'am.
Sure. We already have members that are not Nigerians. We have members from Benin Republic. And just a week before the conference, somebody also contacted me from Benin Republic. And just this morning, Miriam asked me if another person was interested from Benin Republic. So we have members already from outside Nigeria. We even have a member from Ivory Coast, I think. Yes, Ivory Coast. So it is not all about Nigeria, it's about research. And from whatever aspect you approach your research. So that answers that anybody can. And then after now, we can contact any one of us as to membership, or we'll place again the call for membership on our Twitter page. So, and that's that. our membership. As for ATSA, to the same the members. To register for ATSA as a member, you just go to the website of ATSA and then you see the details of registration. But any doubts, you can contact us to direct you as to how to go about it. So that's about the team. And then coming back to this issue of practice, research, NITI, and ATSN, I want to close on that, please. Like I said it again. NITI is strictly translation practice, and it is headed by the president for now is Professor Yakasi of Bayelsa University, Kano. But the founding father is Professor Simpson Ekundayo. I'm a strong member of NITI. I was editor, I was vice president, and I equally belong to ATSN. In fact, myself and Miriam and some of us were the ones that brought ATSA to Nigeria. And at the point of bringing it in, it was made clear that ATSA is clearly a research thing, translation research. So there is a difference, although both are complementary. So no one should be afraid that one is eroding the other. All of us that you are seeing here, we are all members, most of us are members of NITI. That. So now that ATSN is coming up, it just to put this in perspective as it's supposed to be. As translation studies is today in the world, we should not be left behind. We should be a part of the global discourse on translation studies as it is. And Professor Kolawole's paper clearly addressed all the issues that are involved and that will make us to have a proper positioning of translation studies in Nigeria. And one of the things I talked about was to do with the curriculum. It's now taught as it's a language thing in a language department. It's just a course in a language department, which does not equip the graduates of today to face the world of translation as we do here. So we are beginning to talk about translation being a discipline fully for the graduates of today who will not go out to hesitate when he leaves school. So on that note, and let us begin to rethink how we can position translation studies as a discipline in our institutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Able President, for that conclusive remark, which is very, very instructive. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as I said before, we have eaten too deep into our scheduled time. And because members and participants, of course, we have some other engagements, we wouldn't want to drag it too far. So at this point, I've been inviting...
Can I say something?
Yes, briefly? Sir? Okay, Dr. Njoma, please, in 1 minute, if you don't mind.
Yes, please. In Inland, we have we teach translation as a course. Apart from teaching in departmental courses, we train translators both at diploma and postgraduate diploma, and they go for IT. We supervise them, and equally seeing the situation in the country, we've included translation and media stroke broadcasting. Wonderful. As a part of in the curriculum, and it's helping the students. Most times they do their IT in either television station or radio stations. And recently we made a proposal to our institute, and we have now a Center for Translation Studies.
Wonderful.
So we're going to
thank you
have a lot of plans
for that very cheering news. That's a great news you've shared with us. Thank you so much. We are moving forward.
Just a quick announcement.
Yes, sir.
The journal for translation studies in Nigeria, we've been circulating it for some time now. We've got a number of papers, and we also want more papers to be submitted so that we can really place translation studies in Nigeria within the global perspective, present our Nigerian voice. The deadline for submission is 30th of this month of November, and our goal is to have this first issue of the journal published by April next year. So we want everybody's support. We'll be calling upon some of us in a couple of weeks' time to act as reviewers of some of the papers. But first of all, we need more submissions. So this is a call for submission, just to remind us.
Thank you very much. Dr. Oyale is the editor of our journal. So very good information. Thank you so much. So at this point, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure, to hand over the floor to our digital professor, Ilo, who is the chairman of the LOC. Professor Ilo is also the very able Secretary General of UFTAN, University French Teachers Association of Nigeria, where she's digitalizing the secretariat. Kudos for a good job. So she will be taking the vote of thanks and some closing remarks. Thank you very much, Madam Ilo. Please, you have the floor.
Thank you.
You have the floor, ma'am.
Yeah, thank you very much. Well, it's a very simple thing I have to do. First of all, is to give a vote of thanks, and then very, very brief remarks in form of conclusion. We have come a very long way. I want to first and foremost thank Dr. Falabi. You can share the screen.
Yes, it's been shared, ma'am.
Okay.
It's been shared, ma'am.
Okay, I'm not getting.
Yeah.
No, we can't see. We can only see your folder,
Yes,
not
I don't know.
not her text. Yes.
Oh, sorry about that, please. I thought.
Okay.
Okay. Do we have it now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Sorry about that.
Well, it's just to thank everyone, but I would like to start by thanking our able president, my friend, Professor Rita Mebitanga, for giving me this opportunity to serve as the chair. I would also like to thank the ESCO for approving that I be the chair of this great occasion. I thank you so much for the confidence reposed in me, and I wish we'll have more time. Another time, it's just a webinar. We've not seen ourselves and all. I'd like to go on to thank our keynote speaker, Professor. My internet is very bad. Professor Kolawole, even though he showed briefly, but I must thank him for his keynote address, which went straight on point and was able to explain so many things, though he was not there to answer some of the questions some of us would have liked to pose. And then, of course, our two other speakers, particularly Dr. Obikudu. I enjoyed your presentation, very, very technical, where you talk about lexicology, lexicography, and more of documentation. Incidentally, I teach some part of a documentation, so it's an invaluable presentation you did. I had wished we had enough time so that you could tell us more. Thank you so much for your presentation. And let me use the opportunity to thank all our presenters, particularly Dr. Afolabi, who now had to stand in for Adedimeji, and of course, Dr. Oyali, our able secretary, who also had to present the keynote address. So I thank the three speakers immensely because you took time to prepare these papers. Then I'll go further to thank the LOC. If you put someone as a chair, without members of the body, the chair cannot perform. So I want to thank Dr. Adeyefa, Dr. Afolabi, Dr. Oyali, and of course, Dr. Ijeoma. Thank you very much we work together. I look forward to working with you some other time. Next slide. I want to also use the opportunity to thank all the participants. Before I go further to thank the other participants, let me thank Dr. Bema, my friend, who is actually the vice president, we have always worked together. I thank you so much for making it a day also with us, and for all the effort and your support on our president, Professor Rita. So thank you for I thank all the participants for your ability, for your presence. Many of you have stayed on till this time. I know it's not so easy. Network have been fluctuating here and there, but permit me to ask all of you to give yourself an applause. Just give yourself an applause. I don't know how else, it's virtual, but just give yourself an applause. And then let me go on to just to quickly say a brief remark. So many things have been said, questions have been asked. We may not have had enough time, but to say that actually even from the keynote address, that translation studies in Nigeria date as far back as the 70s and the early 80s. And then, of course, I'm glad somebody mentioned Nati and all that. But permit me to say, some of us were really disillusioned when we discovered that things were really moving. But I'm so glad to thank my office mate then. I was in Delta State University, then it was Bender State University, Professor Rita Mebita, who on her own went all out, because at a point, it was like I had to abandon translation to go into comparative literature because we didn't have people to mentor us. So you find that most of us were just struggling on our own. And so I want to say that it's a long story. It's not to indict anybody, but to say that we have really come a long way. I'm very much at ease and relaxed with translation. So the Association of Translation Studies in Nigeria, well, I want to say congratulations and happy anniversary to all of us, to the ESCO, to the president, to the vice president, to Professor Dr. Afolabi, and to every one of you. Thank you, Dr. Afolabi, for adding all this, Nagode and Ndalo, all of them. So I want to, mine is just to say thank you. I thank you for taking the time, the patience to be here. Thank you, and God bless every one of you. Thank you.
Nothing much to
everybody.
Yes, Prof. President?
Yeah, I'll just say thank you, everybody. Happy anniversary.
Okay, thank you, Prof. And not much to add, just to say thank you, Prof. Kilo, for thanking us. Thank you, everybody. And today. Thank you.
Thank you to Dr. Shegun Afolabi. 3 hips.
We give all
thank you, Dr.
We give all glory to God. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you.